7. Businesses across Auckland are gearing up for a drop down to alert level 3 beginning 11:59pm this evening. But is it too late for some? And are we really on top of this outbreak, or is the alert level change just a calculated risk, as some are saying? Let's ask the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, who is with us from the Beehive this morning. Morena.
Morena.
Can we start with anything new developments? Have you been made aware of any more positive cases, the Hauraki cases? Have we got testing back?
Well, look, given for the interest in northern Hauraki, and we did expedite testing across that region, I can tell you that so far of the tests that we've had returned, which is roughly in the order of 200, those so far are negative. We do expect to receive further though, so not a time or a place for anyone to sit back and be complacent at this stage. We continue to sweep through with testing through that community, and you'll know that we've essentially created a level 4 situation for that community,
yes,
just for the next 5 days while we continue to test, contact trace, be really rigorous to ensure that we don't have any additional spread in that community. So a big thank you for those who have turned out to be tested, and we do need to keep going.
All right, so that's 200 tests. Out of how many would you be expecting from that community to be completed?
Total count that I had of last night, so this is just of those who have been tested so far. My understanding is that we have a total of 400 so far, so we've had roughly half of those returns.
Right,
that may not be the total count nor the total expectation. We've got to make sure we're testing that school community and other contacts.
Do they include the school community, the kids who were in class with that symptomatic child?
Look, whilst I can't give you a full breakdown, I would expect that it likely would, but that's something that we will individually go and chase to make sure that we have all of those close contacts. So that's a given, that those will be high on our priority list. But what we've also provided is general testing for the community. What I can also say is yesterday we did get results back through, and I reported them at 4 o'clock, but we got results back through from policing staff, correction staff, those at the courts who may have come in contact with the individual who was positive, and those came back negative as well. So again, Ryan, still tests to come through for this morning. This is as of last night, for this morning, later on today, but so far we've still got the 3 household members.
And these, was it gang members that picked him up and took him from prison to his home and somehow have infected him on the journey? They stopped off a couple of places along the way. What is your understanding of who?
No, not necessarily. So just on the rules, we do allow people who have been in managed isolation or who are being released from prison to go back to their place of residence. Now, the reason they're able to do that, and that is one of the movements that are allowed, is because, of course, they've been in a COVID-free environment. Once you've completed your MIQ, obviously you're cleared, you're tested and you're cleared, and once you've come out of prison, which obviously has been COVID-free, you're able to go back to your place of residence, keeping in mind
that doesn't matter if they can get it on the journey home, right?
So if I could just finish, I thought it was useful context, Ryan. So that individual has been transported to the place where they've been bailed. That journey was, relatively quick, same day. Over the course of that period, he has come in contact with COVID.
Yep.
We know how he got it, and we know where he got it from. What we were determining is whether any rules were broken along the way in him coming into contact with COVID. So that's what we're working through. But the most important part from a public health perspective is knowing how and knowing when.
All right. So in future, will you change the rules so that any prisoner who is being bailed during level 4 lockdown won't be bailed outside of the level 4 to make sure that this situation doesn't arise
keep in mind,
again?
That hasn't been the problem. The fact that he was bailed to another environment, that wasn't the problem. It was the contact he had with others from a level 4 environment.
But taking it outside of Auckland isn't good, is it? To a level 2 environment.
But it's not been. If that's not been the issue that's caused, that wasn't the cause of the problem. He was COVID-free.
But it makes the problem so much worse.
He's unfortunately come into contact with COVID people.
Yeah, but then you've got a symptomatic child
Ryan, if
in
I could,
school
I am really trying to answer
2.
your question, Ryan, if you just give me a second. So the thing that we would be more interested in is, are there ways we can put better protections around who might be transporting an individual or their ability as they transit through to come in contact with COVID? So that it's not the person themselves, it's the journey that's the issue. So, yeah, I do want to take a closer look at that because we always want to make sure that everything we're doing is about keeping people safe.
Totally. But with respect, you didn't answer that specific question. So crossing the border from a level 4 to a level 2 environment doesn't seem like a particularly smart thing to do when we have Delta in the community. Will we make sure that that
Ryan,
doesn't happen?
I did in fact answer the question. My point was it's not the person that's been released that's the issue, because we know that they've been in a COVID-free environment and this person was COVID-free. The issue is how someone is transported to a level 2 environment and the risk that presents. So that's the thing that we need to look through. The same with a person released from managed isolation. They've been tested multiple times. We know those individuals are safe to return to their residence because they've been essentially in a very tight quarantine. It's the way they get there and who they might travel with, which are the things that we need to take a closer look at.
All right. Prime Minister, I want to talk about Christmas because a lot of people are looking at this level 3 and they're not quite buying the 2-week thing, because this tail is stubborn and it just sort of keeps rolling on, doesn't it, with these mystery cases. Can you guarantee no level 4 or 3 at Christmas?
We all want to make sure that we have as many freedoms as possible at Christmas, and we have that all within our power, Ryan, because the difference between now and past situations when we've been in lockdown, yes, is Delta, and it has made our job harder, but we have another tool, and that's called vaccination. So that is something that everyone can do now and make a joint effort to put us in the best position possible to as fewer restrictions as possible. In Auckland, a great effort's been made. It looks like we have the potential this week to hit 80%. Over the next couple of weeks, we have the potential to hit 90%. But it's up to everyone to do their bit and to encourage friends and family to also go out and be vaccinated.
100%. I'm so on board with your vaccine message. I hear you. The question is, at what point are we guaranteed those freedoms? Because you keep saying, get vaccinated because it'll give you freedoms. At what point? Your health minister has said 90%. If we hit 90, no more level 4.
Well, actually, one of the things that I said this week that I'm really keen for us to do is there's some preliminary modelling, and I know the modellers want to do a little bit of extra work, but they have done some preliminary modelling of the difference that high vaccination levels make to the types of restrictions that you live with. Because you look around the world at other countries, you'll see that they have varying restrictions depending on their vaccination rates. So they've done some work on what that might look like in a New Zealand context. I think it'd be really interesting for New Zealanders to see that at different rates of vaccine, the difference that it makes for people's health, their safety and their everyday lives. So I'd be keen once that's ready to share that so that people can see that difference.
From what you have seen of it, are we looking at? We are going to be looking at thousands of deaths, aren't we, over several years at 90%?
Two things first, Ryan. That you're making an assumption. You're making an assumption here that we aren't continuing with our Stamp It Out strategy, and we are. In terms of the decision that we made yesterday, keep in mind every other outbreak that we've had since our first lockdown, we've dealt with from level 3 the entire time. Because of Delta, we started with level 4 and we did that for 5 weeks in Auckland. That helped us to establish that we do not have widespread uncontrolled transmission. Yes, we still have cases, but level 3 still offers very tight restrictions, and this is a special message for Auckland here. The things that make the biggest difference for us in these situations continues to be people keeping their bubbles. So please do not for a moment think that level 3 means that you should suddenly break out and see friends, families or socialise. Keep your bubbles tight. It is incredibly important as we continue to work on stamping it out. And Ryan, at the same time, we're asking people to go and be vaccinated because we do think it will make a difference for this outbreak too. Okay.
And so at what point will that vaccination have an effect on our freedoms?
And I just answered that question, that some of the modelling that's been done still shows that the highest rates that you have, and which is why people have talked about 90 plus. You've heard Dr. Bloomfield say 90 plus, because that's the point that you see it having an impact. If you're in the position of having COVID around, that's when you see it having an impact on the levels of restrictions that you need to deal with. But as I've said, what I want to do is give you an insight into the modelling. We'll look to do that once we have some more up-to-date versions of it and share that with the public so they can see the difference that it makes to the types of restrictions.
All right, Prime Minister, thank you very much for your time. As always, we really appreciate it. That is the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, with us this morning. It's 20 after 7.
Why would you go?